Hey guys, I'm Jared, and today we're talking about what's new in board gaming as of March 4th, 2022. I'll be covering the latest news, announcements, most played games, hot new Kickstarters, and crowdfunded games, and more related to board gaming for the past 3 weeks. At the end, I'll also be sharing what's going on behind the scenes with my YouTube channel, Meeple Mentor. So stick around, we've got a lot to cover. Leave me a like and comment on what kinds of updates that you want to hear more about. To make sure that you don't miss any of my news updates, new video tutorials, and our podcast episodes, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and your preferred streaming platform. Let's take a look at games currently being crowdfunded. Up first are a couple on the GameFound platform. On GameFound, Lobotomy is back for a second installment. Lobotomy 2 Manhunt brings all new add-ons to enhance the experience of the original dungeon crawler. Players become patients trying to escape from a mental asylum, all set in a climactic survival horror theme. The game includes a story campaign and a daily nightmare mode with unlimited replayability. The characters do not remember who they are, so they fill the blanks with random references from movies, books, comics, and TV. As their insanity grows, so does their power. But is it all real, or is it all just in your head? This asylum crawler has everything the players loved in the original Lobotomy, with the addition of streamlined rules that minimize the downtime and maximize the fun. It is intended for 1 to 5 players and has a playtime of 2 hours. It's funding until March 15th. Factory 42 for the Greater Good Edition is a 2 to 5 player game with a playtime of 90 minutes. It combines worker placement, negotiation, and resource management elements in a coherent, tightly woven game set in the world of Zanzibar. Players compete as dwarven factory foremen, guiding their workers throughout the manufacturing process, earning rewards from the fulfillment of government orders. Bureaucracy hinders the process and affects the supply to the common resource pools, and can punish foremen for failing to fulfill orders. The factory production line has quotas to be met, rivals to undercut, tools to improve, and shady deals to be made. It's funding on GameFound until March 13th. The 51st State Ultimate Edition combines the popular strategy card game and all its expansions, including the brand new No Man's Land, as well as hard-to-find promos and component upgrades into one box. Funding until March 7th, you can find it on GameFound. 1 to 4 players will develop a new state in a post-apocalyptic world. You will use your resources to build new locations, make deals to increase production, and attack the infrastructure of your opponents, for only one state can win over in this hostile universe. The gameplay is about 75 minutes. Also on GameFound right now is Tendaya Deluxe Edition from Red Mojo Games. Lead your tribe to survival in a world ruled by gods and shaped by natural disasters. It feels like a Euro with lots of theme-driven adventure. It has solo, co-op, and competitive gameplay modes. It's for 1 to 4 players and plays in 2 hours. Pilgrim by Amusement is described as a medium-heavy Euro with a unique Mancala movement mechanism with tile placement and resource gathering. It starts crowdfunding today. And on Kickstarter until March 30th, you can find Library Labyrinth, a cooperative library-based board game in which famous fictional and historical characters defeat literary terrors. Build a team of amazing fictional and historical women to put escaped literary terrors back in their books. Play it solo with a playtime of about 30 minutes, or with 2 to 5 players for a 30 to 45 minute experience. Earth Under Siege Flashpoint is a relaunch for the 1 to 4 player co-op sci-fi dungeon crawler, where players complete covert missions against an invading alien force. Gameplay is thematic, allowing players to use many cinematic strategies, such as cutting the power, crawling through the ventilation shafts, making use of silenced weapons, and hacking enemy databases. Players use stealth, sabotage, and ambush-style combat to fight back against the enemy and defend the Earth from annihilation. It's funding on Kickstarter until March 24th. Also on Kickstarter is Small Samurai Empires, plus the expansion and playmat. Samurai Empires is an action programming and area control board game of strategy in feudal Japan. This expansion adds 5th player components, a new training grounds module, and solo mode. The playmat is designed to contain all the slots for the base game components, the 5th player expansion, and the variants. It's funding until March 24th. Mondrian Color and Motion is an elegant strategy game for 1 to 5 players. Each game starts with 1 card and grows organically, creating a piece of art. Each game results in an original work of art. Mondrian Color and Motion is easy to learn, but has a strategy that grows organically as the game progresses. Setup is quick and simple, with the gameplay consisting of stacking cards, placing markers on the overlaps, then jumping markers to gain points. Find it funding on Kickstarter until April 1st. A detailed, old-school solo co-op dungeon crawl with heavy RPG elements, lots of dungeon tiles, monsters, loot, and replayability, titled League of Dungeoneers, is funding on Kickstarter until March 31st. It's a character-driven game where the focus is on developing your party of heroes and a huge, true solo co-op dungeon crawl board game with heavy RPG elements. Also on Kickstarter is the Umbrella Academy, the board game, a cooperative board game for 1 to 5 players inspired by the world-famous Umbrella Academy. This is an easy-to-learn, fast-paced board game that sees you becoming a member of the Umbrella Academy. Save the world from devastating hazards and thwart the plots of villains like Hazel and Cha-Cha, the White Violin, and more as you count down to the apocalypse. Loads of replay value, easy setup, solo rules, cooperative gameplay, and amazing miniatures means this is the definitive Umbrella Academy tabletop experience. It's funding until March 16th. Power has its price in Be Hexed, an unconventional deck building game. In this easy-to-learn magical combat deck building game, your hand of spells is your only defense and your only currency. Sacrifice your cards from your hand and even your own willpower to build your arcane arsenal. Curse and counter-curse your opponents into submission without being hexed yourself. Be Hexed is for 3 to 5 players and has a playtime of 45 to 90 minutes. You can find it on Kickstarter until March 18th. April 1st marks the final day of the Kickstarter campaign for Hard Time. It's a fast-paced 2 to 4 player game with a playtime of 40 minutes. In this card game set in a prison, you must shank your opponents to be the last inmate standing. Street-level heroes, gritty action, and noir settings enhance the first expansion for Sentinels of the Multiverse Definitive Edition, the Rook City Renegades expansion, and includes a new character and a brand new game mechanic. You can find it funding on Kickstarter until March 31st. The Lost Code is a deduction game in which you have to make progressive guesses to find out which numbers you have. 2, 3, or 4 players try to guess their own numbers while being able to see other players' ones. This Lost Code reboot campaign has been launched, offering an add-on of a playmat and the choice to add plastic game pieces. The reboot is funding on Kickstarter until March 22nd. Cat Magic the Game is a casual card game for 2 to 5 players. Build your artifact, sabotage your competition, and win the favor of Sir Kipling, Magical Talking Cat. With snarky cat quotes on every card, be the first to collect or steal items to complete your artifact and save the library. Find it funding on Kickstarter until April 1st. Also on Kickstarter is Ahau, Rulers of Yucatan, an innovative Euro-America hybrid board game combining classic elements of worker placement and resource management with a brand new system for dual engine building and fight for worker zones. Set in the classic period of the Maya, the game has a fascinating and immersive theme. Each and every element of Ahau has been lovingly balanced to provide you with the most engaging and challenging gameplay. It's funding until March 18th. On Kickstarter, check out the game simply called Earth. It has engine building, hand management, and tableau building and plays 1 to 5 players. Create self-supporting ecosystems of growth, expansion, and supply where even the cards not used become compost for future growth and in-game victory points. It looks beautiful. Doublehead Kids 3rd edition is on Kickstarter now and is a new version of the classic German trick-taking card game Doppelkopf. The original form of the game began in Germany in 1895 and has over 100 years of popularity, becoming Germany's most popular card game. check it out. An 18-card micro game called Dinosauria is funding now and is a solo-only game where you're a galactic paleobiologist sent to a distant planet. There, you'll revive ancient dinosaurs, cultivate egg-laying, and shepherd a new generation that thrives beyond human intervention. There's an added expansion that allows for up to 3 players. For something completely different, look at Kingdoms Forlorn, Dragons, Devils, and Kings, an epically massive board game for 1 to 4 players offering immersive cooperative play. Quest through a dark medieval fantasy world through structured stories and roguelite delves. Customize your knights and experience over 150 hours of narrative gameplay together. Trinity of Rain is a new unique kingdom-building strategy game funding now on Kickstarter, where you can customize your capital city, amass wealth, lead your troops into battle, and earn the favor of ancient gods. It features over 250 miniatures and 22 buildings and units. A new roll and write game called Retrograde is funding now, inspired by classic arcade games like Galaga. Use dice to clear your board of invading astrodroids. Match combos on target cards to claim them first. It's a game of fast-paced dice rolling and features bosses to defeat as well. In Quatermain deck-building adventures, go back in time to the late 1800s in unexplored Africa. Hunt big game, gain interesting allies, and seek your fortune. It plays in over an hour for ages 14 and up, and for 2 to 4 players. Black Hole Rainbows, an energy-packed strategy game of cosmic proportions. The universe is being slowly crushed into nothingness, but as uber-dimensional beings, you must load each black hole up with the full rainbow of quantum energy so they can explode into supernovas. Destroy the universe to save it. It's for 2 to 6 players and plays in about half an hour. Today is the last day of funding. Mythic Mayhem Forge of Heroes is an expandable battle card game for 2 to 20 players that plays in 10 to 45 minutes. The rules and design of the game are meant to be as streamlined and easy to learn as possible, while keeping all the fun elements of some of the most popular TCGs. It's a game of skill, strategy, and chance. A 2 to 6 player card game called Crabs in a Bucket is funding and is a fast-paced card game blending strategy, chaos, and lots of crabs. It plays in only 15 minutes with the goal of becoming the ruler of the ocean by getting rid of your hand of cards. Match cards by suit or number, or use Joker crabs to pull players down. It's for ages 10 and up. A war sim game is funding called D-Day to the Rhine 1944 and is for 2 players and plays in only 2 hours. It's a hex encounter war game based on D-Day in World War II. It's from Old School War Games, creator of Battle of the Bulge 1944 war game. The final expansion of Tang Garden, Seasons, includes a host of new features, new tiles to expand your garden, decoration cards that are situational to the board state, and visitors to call enhance the experience of this 1 to 4 player game that's funding on Kickstarter until March 17th. Find new games that have been displayed at the AB Con in the AB Con bundle. Carefully selected, one of the games is Instant Sync, a party game where you're encouraged to telepathically connect with your friends and synchronize your thinking to make matching descriptions and maximize points. Bidding Room Underground, the second inclusion in the AB Con bundle, is a strategy game where you try to undermine your opponents while dealing with the world of illegal artifacts. Shadows, Heroes, and Monsters provides a 2 to 3 player deck building experience. Take control of a hero and play your cards well to gain experience, gold, empower abilities, and gather shadow stones. Back it on Kickstarter until March 29th. March 8th is the final day for the Kickstarter campaign for the Unsettled board game plus all new content. In the depths of the cosmos, dive into a series of survival puzzles. In each play, your crew will visit strange new worlds with their own environments and challenges. Super Show the Game adds 8-bit anime and super style competitors. In the Time Warp, competitors from different timelines and multiverses square off in a quest for power and, of course, one of the elusive LFF championships. Super Show is built to support any type of wrestling match. You can find it funding on Kickstarter until March 27th. The sun is nearing the end of its life cycle in the year 2357. This is the setting for Starship Interstellar, a 1 to 4 player game. Guide a nation to become the foremost contributor in the race for the interstellar spaceship. Become the foremost nation to guide humanity on a new Earth if you are deemed to be the greatest contributing nation. It's on Kickstarter until March 15th. In industry news, a Dungeons & Dragons musical is coming to New York in June, titled Here There Be Dragons. The show will make its first run at the Player Theater and will feature topics such as friendship, connections, and the journey of life. All of this is inspired by the fantasy role-playing game. The Game Manufacturers Association has hired Rachel Blask to become their new marketing manager. She has 17 years of experience working as a marketing and brand consultant, starting as the CEO of 524 Labs. As Gamma's marketing manager, Blask will head up their communications team to promote and support Gamma's programs and events. In 2021, tabletop games set a new record on Kickstarter. The growth in tabletop games funding on Kickstarter in 2021 was the 7th consecutive year of growth, with funding having grown 13% in 2021 from $237 million in 2020 to $272 million last year, according to a post on Medium by Thomas Bedeau of ICO Partners. YouTube channel Tolarian Community College and GameGenic have teamed up to offer a brand new deck box through Kickstarter. The professor, aka Brian Lewis, runs the Tolarian Community College YouTube channel and is one of the most followed independent Magic the Gathering content creators on the platform. He is launching his first ever Kickstarter campaign, which will feature a deck box in partnership with BBC Studios. Lucky Duck Games has announced an intended line of board games based on the Sherlock TV series featuring Benedict Cumberbatch. The players will visit the show's locations to gather the needed evidence that supports their theory of the crime. The creator behind Root, Cole Whirl, seeks to make his next project a better Clue. His love for mysteries, but not mystery games, has driven him to create a less fundamental and more in-depth approach to solving a conundrum. The aim is to make the experience more novel-like. Speaking of Cole Whirl, his upcoming release, Ark's Collapse and Conflict in the Void, is said to be playable thousands of times. The space-themed game has players pursuing their own objectives across 50 to 70-minute sessions. Reportedly, there are 40 to 50 different objective cards to pursue, thus giving it the accolade of replayability. Seven Wonders Architects wins 2022 as d'Or Board Game Award, while Dune Imperium wins the Expert Award. Seven Wonders Architects beat out the competition of the storytelling game Cartaventura Lhasa. Dune Imperium won over Lost Ruins of Arnak and Icky. The Asdor winner for Best Children's Game 2022 was Bubble Stories, Matthew Dunstan, which took the award over Justin DeWitt's My First Castle Panic and Pin Pon by Julie Bigrow. As Texas makes significant moves towards preventing and criminalizing gender and life-affirming medical care for transgender children, one man, Rue Dickey, has begun to organize a bundle of tabletop RPGs to be sold on a digital games marketplace with the intention to split the proceeds between Transgender Education Network of Texas and Organization Latina Trans Texas. GTS Distribution announced that they have become Stonemaier Games' sole distribution partner for the US. This agreement, which aligns with Stonemaier's worldwide distribution plans, became effective as of March 1st, 2022. GTS Distribution and Stonemaier Games will also launch a new retailer program called the Stonemaier Fortress Program. The program will allow retailers to more easily pre-order Stonemaier's titles via an opt-in for automatic pre-orders. A retailer's participation in the program will also guarantee that they can pre-order 3 units for gold stores or 6 units for platinum stores of new Stonemaier games that will not be allocated. April brings the release of 3 new pocket games from DeVere Games. In Walkie Talkie, players try to maximize points by unloading their hands as quickly as possible. Veggies is a pattern construction game where players attempt to populate market stalls they have created with the best combination of vegetables. Finally, Ouch is a children's game which sees players connecting the prettiest flowers with cacti without getting stuck by the spines. Each of these games will retail for $9.99. A new version of the classic Labyrinth game will be released into trade in 2022. In Labyrinth Disney Villains, the villains are searching for their henchmen across a moving maze. The first player to deliver all their henchmen out of the maze wins the game. This game is for 2 to 4 players ages 7 and up and plays in 20 to 30 minutes. It will retail for $34.99. WizKids will release Yosemite, a new tile strategy board game, into retail in June 2022. Players will travel through Yosemite National Park, taking pictures of animals and landmarks in an attempt to win the title of Photographer of the Year. They will use thematic movements based on specific animals in the park to traverse the terrain and move to the best campsites to obtain quality photos, and the player that accumulates the most points wins. This game is for 2 players ages 12 and up and plays in 20 minutes. It will retail for $29.99. CMON released Extra Players Upgrade Set, a new board game expansion for Zombicide 2nd Edition, into retail on February 25th, 2022. This expansion set allows the player count to go up to 12 in games of Zombicide 2nd Edition. It adds enough plastic dashboards, starting equipment, counter bases, and trackers to accommodate the new survivors. The game box comes with a total of 6 dashboards, 6 equipment cards, 48 trackers, 6 survivor bases, and a rules leaflet. Extra Players Upgrade Set will retail for $24.99. CMON's Marvel Zombies Miniatures board game recently wrapped up its Kickstarter on Thursday, raising over $9 million and hitting Kickstarter's all-time top dollars raised chart. The designer behind Azul, Michael Kiesling, has an upcoming board game called The Border on its way. A dice rolling game for 2 to 4 players, The Border is about building walls and claiming as much land as possible. Players use sets of dice in order to establish their borders, rolling them and choosing which results they want to take. Each player has their own designated board, which they'll use to establish their borders. The Border is set to be released sometime this year, with an English language version yet to be confirmed. Plague Island Games will release 2 Minutes to Midnight, a new strategic Cold War board game, into retail in Q2 this year. In this military strategy game, players take on the role of either the US or USSR and saber, rattle, embargo, and sabotage their way towards winning the Cold War standoff. The goal of the US player is to force the collapse of the Soviet Union, and the goal of the USSR is to win the space race and spread communism to the rest of the world. This game is for 1 to 2 players ages 14 and up and plays in 1 to 7 hours. Funko Games has announced 4 new family-friendly games featuring Disney themes and characters for release this spring. Disney Happiest Day Game, Magic Kingdom Park Edition, Disney Big Thunder Mountain Railroad Game, Disney's A Goofy Movie game, and Disney Return of the Headless Horseman game. The Disney Happiest Day game Magic Kingdom Park Edition invites players to take a tour of the Magic Kingdom. Players can find attractions, characters, and other magic moments throughout the park. Meanwhile, Tinkerbell makes her way to the top of the famous castle, turning day into night when she arrives. It is intended for 2 to 6 players ages 5 and up and plays in about 20 minutes. Retail price is $24.99. Disney Big Thunder Mountain Railroad game lures players to the cursed mining town of Tumbleweed, where they must try to make their fortune by mining the mountain while trying to avoid its mysterious dangers. Players can discover gold, purchase equipment to expand their operations, and even invest in businesses in town. For 2 to 4 players ages 9 and up, games take about 45 minutes and will retail for $29.99. In Disney A Goofy Movie game, players join Max and friends on a road trip as they race to the next Powerline concert. Along the way, they can collect memories for their scrapbook and try to get the best seats for the concert while trying to avoid unplanned detours. It's designed for 2 to 4 players, can be played in half an hour, and retails for $23.99. Rounding out the new titles is Disney Return of the Headless Horseman game, set in the famous town of Sleepy Hollow. The players must try to help Ichabod reach the covered bridge before the Headless Horseman can catch him. This cooperative game is designed with adjustable difficulty so families can set the challenge level that they want to face. This game is intended for 2 to 4 players ages 6 and up and takes around 15 minutes to play. Funko Games announced Ted Lasso Party Game, a new game based on the hit Apple TV series, which will release in summer 2022. This feel-good party game features characters, events, and quotes from the popular TV show. It comes with a football-shaped die and Ted Lasso coach standees for flavor. There is also a container that holds tiles fashioned after the biscuit box Ted brings to Rebecca each day. Ted Lasso Party Game is for 2 to 6 players ages 10 and up and plays in 20 minutes. It will retail for $19.99. Pandasaurus Games announced Sobek, 2 players, a set collection tile game by Bruno Cathala for release into US retail on May 25th this year. In Sobek, 2 players, a market has emerged near the construction of a temple in ancient Sobek along the Nile River. Players assume the roles of merchants trying to buy and sell their way to fortune and glory. This game is for 2 players, ages 10 and up, and plays in 20 minutes. Warlord Games released Bolt Action Combined Arms, a new World War II board game, into pre-order starting February 18th. Bolt Action Combined Arms is a strategic board game where players fight for the control of air, land, and sea in the various theaters of World War II. The goal of the game is to claim objectives on different maps and hold them. This game has a modular campaign system that allows players to incorporate Bolt Action, Blood Red Skies, Cruel Seas, or Victory at Sea content into their games. Tim's and Cosmos will release Exit: The Return to the Abandoned Cabin, a new escape room game, into retail in June this year. In Exit: The Return to the Abandoned Cabin, a police detective beckons players to follow him to a cabin in the woods. This is the same cabin where sinister riddle master Dr. Arthur Funbeck locked the players up a few years ago. Dr. Funbeck has recently escaped from prison, and players must help track him down. This game is for 1 to 4 players ages 12 and up and plays in 1 to 2 hours. It will retail for $17.95. Fight over the same canvas in Abstract Academy. The key component of the game are canvas cards, which consist of 4 quadrants that are each red, yellow, or blue. Players will take turns orthogonally placing canvas cards without overlapping until a 4x4 2-player or 5x5 4-player grid is complete. Players will complete 3 canvases, then the player with the most points has achieved highest marks from the professor at the academy. It's available for purchase now, and if you buy it through the Crafty Games web store, you will receive a free promo. The designer of Detective Club and Mysterium and the art studio behind Detective Club and Obscurio are bringing you a new cooperative family party game, Oneronauts. Published by iGame Studio, in Oneronauts, 2 to 6 players will journey the dream ocean trying to collect enough sheep in a limited number of rounds. Fantasy Flight Games will release Ironheart Hero Pack for Marvel Champions the card game into retail May 2022. Riri Williams is a super genius that managed to reverse engineer Tony Stark's Iron Man suit for her own powered armor to become Ironheart. This expansion pack adds her as a brand new playable hero with 15 signature cards and the unique ability to be able to level up her armor during a scenario. The pack comes with a pre-built deck focused on the leadership aspect. This is not a standalone expansion and requires a Marvel Champions core set to play. Ironheart Hero Pack will retail for $16.99. Alderac Entertainment Group will release Wormholes, a new pickup and delivery game, into retail in Q3 this year. In Wormholes, players assume the roles of captains of passenger spaceships with new wormhole fabricators on board. These devices allow them to build networks of wormholes to pick up and deliver passengers to different destinations in space. Players can use each other's wormhole routes at the cost of victory points, and the player with the most victory points wins the game. This game is for 1 to 5 players ages 14 and up and plays in 45 to 60 minutes. It will retail for $49.99. Diamond Select Toys and Gentle Giant Limited have announced their slate of fall releases. A variety of Marvel Comics and Star Wars items, Star Wars: A New Hope and The Mandalorian, are in the offering, as well as items from Uncharted, Power Rangers, and The Nightmare Before Christmas. Hasbro has announced plans for new tabletop games releasing this year, including twists on classic games Clue, Connect 4, and Monopoly, and games featuring licensed IPs Bridgerton and Fall Guys. Combining the classic whodunit with escape room challenges, Clue, Treachery at Tudor Mansion Escape, and Solve Mystery Game has players trapped in the infamous mansion when Mr. Body is murdered. They must work together to escape while identifying the killer. features a modular game board that players explore as they go. For 1 to 6 players ages 10 and up, retail is $16.99. More Clue action inspires Clue Bridgerton Edition, in which rather than identifying a murderer, the players are summoned by Lady Whistledown to uncover the latest scandal. Special scandal cards help players solve the mystery, but also require them to reveal their own personal details. For 3 to 6 players ages 17 and up, MSRP is $27.99. Releasing this spring, Connect 4 Spin adds an extra level of complexity to the classic 4-in-a-row game by adding spinning columns. Weighted tokens can spin the columns to change the layout of the tokens, possibly creating a surprise victory. Features beginner and expert modes for 2 players ages 8 and up. MSRP is $21.99. The property management game goes global with Monopoly Travel World Tour, in which players buy and sell exotic travel destinations. The game movers are special rubber stamps designed so players can mark their properties directly on the dry erase game board. For 2 to 4 players ages 8 and up, MSRP is $21.99. Launching this fall, Regency-era London is the setting for Monopoly Bridgerton Edition, featuring locations like Danbury Ball, Hastings House, and the Boxing Gym. Players compete to raise their social standing while avoiding scandals from the Dear Reader and Lady Whistledown decks. For 2 to 6 players ages 17 and up, MSRP $27.99. This game will be available exclusively at Target starting this spring. Rounding out the new Monopoly games is the Monopoly Fall Guys Edition, featuring characters from the video game. Players buy up rounds to earn kudos while dodging 3D obstacles and using the knockout die to change the game. For 2 to 4 players ages 8 and up, MSRP is $27.99. Releasing on March 1st. The Fall Guys are also featured in Sorry Sliders Fall Guys Edition, with 4 different game modes including Dizzy Heights, Slime Climb, Whirligig, and Hexagon. Players must slide their pawns toward the target to score points and claim the crown. The first to get 4 pawns back home wins. For 2 to 4 players ages 8 and up, MSRP is $27.99. Available starting March 1st. Darker Hue Studios' Weird West role-playing game Haunted West will be distributed by R. Talsorian Games under a new deal between the 2 companies. R. Talsorian will begin distributing the game in March. The game mechanics use the modular Ouroboros system to allow gaming groups to decide the level of complexity they want to use. In addition to the rules and historical background, the 799-page book also includes in-depth guidelines for creating Weird West cities, a life path-based character creation system with 12 Paragon character categories and ready-to-use weird creatures, magic, steam-powered technology, aliens, and the mythos. A complete adventure, The Night of the Aerostat, is also featured. Retail is $84.95. This spring, Funko Games will be launching the Parks and Recreation Party Game based on the television show. In the Parks and Recreation Party Game, players choose projects to work on, then try to make deals and recruit help from the other players. Though cooperation is needed, the player who can get the most credit for the project will enjoy the best results. The game ends when Little Sebastian stops eating and the player with the best waffles wins. It is intended for 3 to 6 players ages 14 and up and takes about half an hour to play. MSRP is $19.99. The OP announced Disney Sorcerer's Arena Epic Alliance, a new arena-style board game which will release on June 23rd. This new board game is based on the popular mobile game Disney's Sorcerer's Arena, which is a competitive game where Disney and Pixar characters battle each other in a virtual arena. The mobile game has an extensive roster of characters to choose from and battle with in a one-on-one duel format. The tabletop game aims to capture the excitement of the mobile game in a board game format. Disney Sorcerer's Arena Epic Alliances is for 2 to 4 players ages 13 and up and will retail for $49.99. Ravensburger has announced the Wizard of Oz adventure book game set to release in March. The second title in the company's adventure book game series, The Wizard of Oz is a fully cooperative game based on the famous film inspired by the book by L. Frank Baum. Acting as Dorothy, the Tin Woodman, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion, the players must work together to overcome challenges in order to advance to the next page in the story. Along the way, they can encounter Glinda the Good Witch and confront the Wicked Witch of the West as they seek the Wonderful Wizard and a way to get back to Kansas. The game includes a storybook board, a half-dozen sculpted miniatures representing the characters, and game cards. It is intended for 1 to 4 players ages 10 and up. MSRP is $29.99. Blue Orange Games will release Disc Cover and Tongues Out into retail stores in 2022. In Disc Cover, player pick the best album cover cards to match their playlists. The covers selected from the album cards should best match the title of the songs on their playlists. The game box comes with 100 album cover cards, 8 answer wheels, 48 point tokens, 4 disc tiles, a first player token, an illustrator's guide, and a rulebook. This game is for 2 to 6 players ages 7 and up and will retail for $19.99. On March 9th, Rather Dashing Games will launch Coyote Peterson's Wild Adventure, a card game inspired by the Brave Wilderness YouTube channel. This educationally minded game invites players to explore a half-dozen biomes so they can learn about the animals that inhabit them. The players can earn points by playing animal cards that match the current biome, use biome cards to change it, and use Peterson's iconic hat and backpack to gain advantages. Once any player has completed their full adventure, the players score points based on the tableau of cards on the playing mat. The game is intended for 2 to 4 players ages 8 and up and plays in under half an hour. MSRP is $24.99. WizKids will release The Shapers of Gaia, a new board game, into retail in July this year. In The Shapers of Gaia, players take on the roles of shapers that have emerged from a vault after millennia to restore the world of Gaia. Players work with a caretaker robot to earn prestige while they rebuild the biomes of the land and rejuvenate the species that once roamed the land. To expedite these tasks, players will accumulate nutrients and energy to help the biomes grow faster. Also, each of the 6 shapers have unique skill sets that give them different advantages during play. The player that accumulates the most prestige, or victory points, wins the game. This game is for 2 to 3 players ages 14 and up and plays in 60 to 90 minutes. It will retail for $44.99. Renegade Game Studios unveiled G.I. Joe Mission Critical, a new cooperative miniatures board game which will be up for pre-order in April. In G.I. Joe Mission Critical, players can join the Joes and battle against the ever-looming threat that is Cobra. They will work together to thwart Cobra's plans in various locations around the globe and eventually try to take down Cobra Commander. This board game runs on the Guardian system and comes with finely detailed miniatures for both the G.I. Joe and Cobra forces. This game is for 1 to 5 players and plays in about 50 to 70 minutes. As of the publication of this article, MSRP has not yet been revealed. Steve Jackson Games will release Rank and Vile, a new expansion for Munchkin Warhammer 40,000, into retail in March. Rank and Vile adds 3 more armies to Games of Munchkin Warhammer 40,000. It includes cards for the Astra Militarum, Drukhari, and Chaos armies. This set also features new treasures like the Shadow Sword tank, as well as more monsters like Rotigus. Rank and Vile was designed by Steve Jackson, developed by Devin Lewis, and illustrated by John Kovalik. This expansion supports 3 to 6 players ages 10 and up and plays in 60 to 120 minutes. It will retail for $19.95. Appease the spirits of tormented souls together in the upcoming board game spin-off title Fog Over Carcassonne, the next entry in the beloved family board game series. Fog Over Carcassonne transports players not to a medieval French countryside as in the original title, but to a haunted land that's currently being terrorized by angry ghosts. A curtain of mist has spread across the hills and valleys, unleashing the fury of the spirits that dwell inside it. Players will need to use the various locations and landmarks that they can construct around them in order to quell the ghosts' anger and save the locals. Fog Over Carcassonne will be the first co-op board game in the series, seeing the players collaborating together instead of competing against one another. Rather than laying down the traditional fields, monasteries, and city tiles, in Fog Over Carcassonne, players will be attempting to construct cemeteries in which to contain the restless spirits, and haunted castles in order to survive the onslaught of ghosts spreading across the land. Players will have 3 days or 3 rounds of spirit spawning, during which they'll need to contain as many of them as possible, with the ghosts appearing as little semi-transparent meeples. A board game based on zombie survival video game Dying Light is in the works. Glass Cannon Unplugged will be working on the upcoming board game together. No indication was given of a crowdfunding campaign or release date, with Wisniewski simply asking fans to stay tuned. The timing is ripe for a 3rd edition of what has remained a solid horror board game and one often used as a gateway deeper into the hobby. Betrayal at House on the Hill announced a 3rd edition to the popular cooperative Until It Isn't board game in a YouTube video, though not much else is known at this point. Neither Avalon Hill nor Hasbro has provided any additional information, but Dicebreaker has reached out for more information. Reiner Knizia, the creator of the classic 2-player board game Lost Cities, has designed a new tabletop title centered around the city of San Francisco. A city-building game for 2 to 4 players, San Francisco takes place in the first half of the 20th century, where the Californian metropolis saw significant growth and change. In the upcoming board game, players find themselves taking part in a contest to reconstruct part of San Francisco, which may have well been destroyed in the fires created by an earthquake, which struck in 1906. With the players attempting to design the most beautiful buildings possible. The release date for San Francisco is set for Q4 this year, with a retail price yet to be confirmed. The Gloomhaven digital board game is set to receive downloadable content based on the spin-off tabletop title Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. Announced via a tweet from the official Gloomhaven digital Twitter account, the Jaws of the Lion DLC will provide players with new content inspired by the co-op board game. The DLC will require that players have the Gloomhaven video game, despite Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion being a standalone tabletop title, and will add 4 additional mercenaries for players to choose from, as well as an entirely new questline to follow. The OP announced Avatar: The Last Airbender Fire Nation, a brand new cooperative board game for release in the summer. In Fire Nation Rising, players must work together to stop Lord Ozai and the Fire Nation's takeover. Battling this enemy takes place in 2 phases, one where they recruit heroes and fight villains to prepare for the Day of Black Sun, and the other which consists of 3 final battles. If the players take out the villains, they win the game. If 10 or more heroes are defeated, or if any player loses all their heroes, the Fire Nation triumphs. This game is for 1 to 5 players, ages 10 and up, and retails for $49.99. Portal Games announced Thorgal, the board game, a new cooperative storybook adventure game for release into retail in 2023, pending a successful GameFound campaign. Players assume the roles of Thorgal, his wife Arisha, their son Jolan, and Chris. They proceed to tackle a series of scenarios in the Norse mythology-inspired world. The board game will come with 10 scenarios, each of which are standalone. These scenarios are not meant for campaign play. This game is for 1 to 4 players ages 14 and up, and plays in 90 to 120 minutes. It goes up on GameFound in May. Archon Studio will release Wolfenstein the board game, which is based on the classic first-person shooter video game, on March 31st. In this new miniatures board game, players are headed into the original Castle Wolfenstein to take out Adolf Hitler. This game is based on the video game developed by id Software and published by Apogee Software and FormGen in 1992. It supports 1 to 4 players ages 14 and up and plays in 60 to 90 minutes. This game will retail for $120. Yellow will release Get On Board New York and London, a brand new flip and write game into retail in Q2. In Get On Board New York and London, players are off to these 2 big cities to create bus routes. On their turn, players flip over a card and draw an ideal route. The goal of this urban strategy game is for players to complete their objectives and have the most points at the end of the game. This game is for 2 to 5 players ages 8 and up and plays in 30 minutes. It will retail for $29.99. Pandasaurus Games announced The Revenge of Fozilla, the new expansion for The Loop cooperative game, which will release on August 3rd. The new expansion to catch up games' The Loop adds new elements to the battle with the evil genius Dr. Foe, and it features 2 new playable characters and 2 new game modes, 7 kaiju balls, and Fozilla Apocalypse. The expansion also comes with 2 new mission tiles, as well as 8 new artifact cards for use with all game modes. The Revenge of Fozilla supports 1 to 4 players, ages 12 and up, and plays in 60 minutes. It will retail for $25. Gale Force 9 has announced its next board game based on the science fiction classic Dune. Arrakis: Dawn of the Fremen, produced under license from Legendary, will launch in July. Arrakis: Dawn of the Fremen is a competitive game about the conflicts between tribes of Fremen on the planet of Arrakis, set 100 generations before the events depicted in Frank Herbert's novel. Each player controls their own tribe and must build up their military forces while securing the resources they need to survive the hostile world. The famous sandworms can even be harnessed as weapons of war in the struggles between the tribes. It is intended for 2 to 4 players and takes a little over an hour to play. Retail is set for $60. Asmodee will release Bad People and Bad Choices, 2 new party games by DICE, into retail on April 22nd. In Bad People, players vote for or against their friends on their answers to outrageous questions. The goal of the game is to reveal what people really think of one another and share crazy and ridiculous stories at the end of each round. The game box comes with 200 question cards, 100 voting cards, 10 player identity cards, 10 double down cards, a scoring pad, and an instruction booklet. It is for 3 to 10 players ages 17 and up and plays in 20 to 60 minutes. Bad Choices plays like the party game Never Have I Ever and Uno. The goal of this game is for players to uncover hilarious truths, secrets, and stories about their friends. The game box comes with 300 cards, an instruction booklet, and 3 game variants. It is for 3 or more players ages 17 and up and plays in 20 to 45 minutes. Each of these games retails for $24.95. Capstone Games announced Terra Mystica Big Box for release into retail on May 3rd. The original Terra Mystica board game came to the US market via Z-Man Games back in 2013 and is now being re-released in the US under the Capstone banner. Terra Mystica Big Box features a new printing of the base game, along with 2 of its expansions, Terra Mystica Fire and Ice and Terra Mystica Merchants of the Seas. The box also comes with a new solo mode add-on by Automa Factory. Capstone will also offer the solo mode as its own expansion product, Terra Mystica Automa Solo Box. Terra Mystica Big Box supports 1 to 5 players, plays in 30 minutes per player, and will retail for $149.95. Terra Mystica Automa Solo Box will retail for $19.95. The creator of Exploding Kittens has announced an upcoming board game based on a webcomic by The Oatmeal called Why the Mantis Shrimp is My New Favorite Animal. A family board game for 2 to 6 players, Mantis revolves around the underwater crustacean and its ability to see many different colors. In the game, each player begins with a hand of 4 cards that remain face up for all the players to see. The rest of the cards are kept in a draw pile that is left face down, with the backs of the cards providing the group with clues as to what is contained on the front. On their turn, players look at the top card of the draw pile to decide whether to score all the cards matching that top card within their own hands, or to steal the matching cards from an opponent of their choice. The more cards players are able to collect and score from, the more points they'll acquire. As soon as someone scores 10 points or more, they win the game. Mantis is currently exclusively available at the US store Target at a retail price of $20, with a wider release yet to be confirmed. A new version of the fantasy board game Sword and Sorcery features an interactive board and app is on its way, based on the Taboo platform, which enables players to use an interactive board alongside a companion app. When playing tabletop games, the upcoming board game will adapt Sword and Sorcery into a version that's compatible with the interactive tabletop system. The upcoming Tuburo version of Sword and Sorcery is yet to receive a release date or retail price. So now let's talk about what's going on with the Meeple Mentor YouTube channel and what I've been up to. Man, what a few weeks it's been. So busy, so full of news, events, conventions, on and on. Firstly, you may have noticed this news video has come late, 3 weeks instead of 2. The reason is because last weekend I went to the game convention Tantrum Con in Charlotte, North Carolina. So much was going on, it would have been literally impossible to record and upload news that weekend as normal. So that's why this one got pushed out and is so full of content. They're not normally this long. Our podcast, Mentor Minutes, has turned to a new chapter by means of Jay leaving the podcast and Steven taking his place. We're hoping Jay's work will let up in a few months and he can have more time to come back to the podcast. Until then, Steven will be taking on the co-host role and we'll keep it going like normal. He's a film major and also a book lover, so we may end up incorporating discussions about movies and books into the episodes. I'm a cinephile, so I'm totally okay with spending some amount of time talking about movies. Board games will always be the main attraction though. Check out our first episode with just he and I coming this Tuesday. We'll be sharing all about our trip to Tantrum Con, so I won't get into it here. But I can tell you it was amazing and we'll be back next year. We shot a playthrough video with the game designers of the wrestling card game Super Show while at the con. I quickly edited that together and released that video on the channel this week. Definitely go take a look. It's on Kickstarter right now and has already met its funding goal. These guys are so energetic and hype. It's a pretty awesome playthrough. I picked up a few new games while at the con, some given to me by publishers and others purchased. I've been recording unboxing videos for those and will be slowly releasing them out on the channel as well. Look for Shobu, Winter Kingdom, and The Night Cage coming soon. That's not all though. In the past few weeks, I've uploaded quite a few unboxing videos. If you didn't see the notifications, the videos were on the Clinic Deluxe expansions, Unfathomable, The Hunger, Maracaibo Uprising expansion, Hanamakoji, Patchwork Valentine's Edition, and the Lost Ruins of Arnak Expedition Leaders expansion. Jay's Takeaways had 2 videos come out in the past few weeks, one on Las Vegas and another on Detective Club. 2 new tutorials came out on the channel, very popular and newer games, Dinosaur World from Pandasaurus Games, and In Too Deep from Burnt Island Games. Speaking of In Too Deep, the previous podcast episode of Mentor Minutes was me interviewing the designers of the game. Very cool to chat with them and learn about their design process. Check that out to learn more. Alright, that's enough for me. This video is going to be long enough, so thanks for tuning in to today's news update. I appreciate your support, and remember, teach when you can, but always be learning. See you next time.